again for our second attempt at our Sage HRMS review. Thank you very much for understanding our technical difficulties last time. I think we're ready to go this morning. My name is Dina D. I'm the Regional Manager for all of Canada for Sage HRMS. And today we're going to review the Sage HRMS solution, which is really about connecting your employees with their own information and also empowering your managers and your leaders with the information about your staff. And so the HRMS portfolio is all about what makes your organization. And we know that at its core, your organization is about people. And so the Sage HRMS tool is designed to help you empower and engage your employees with their business information as well as their personal information. We're going to focus today on kind of the core functionalities for the Sage HRMS. So we'll be looking at the HR module, all of the employees' personal information, potentially benefit enrollment, health and safety, time off, kind of a summary view of time off management. That's all what's built into our core HR module. And there are other pieces in the portfolio that will be coming to you with future webcasts, or if you see something that you like today and you'd like more of a one-on-one look at it, there are things like employee self-service, recruiting, time and attendance management that all focus around that core Sage HR information. So today we're going to be spending the rest of our time right in the software. I want to get right to it. But if there are other pieces that your business is currently looking for, or like I said, if you see something in the software today and you'd like to spend a little more time with it, just let us know and we'll be happy to follow up after the webcast with more one-on-one kind of review of the software. So I'm going to minimize the PowerPoint, and I do see we have a couple of people joining us right now. Welcome. I believe Joan has the phones on mute for now, and then we will open them back up again a little bit later in the webcast. So if you'd like to use the chat window throughout the webcast, feel free to send us questions. And then, like I said, we will open it up for just an open question and answer opportunity at the end. We've got muted to keep everyone on the same page, and we wouldn't hear any background noise while we were going through the Sage HRMS core HR solution. So what you're seeing now on the screen is our welcome page, or our landing page for the HR software. And this is something that's optional. We can have the software just launch right into a specific panel. So a lot of our HR staff have favorites, and they'll just have the software launch right into the favorite panel. I wanted to start here just to point out a few of the resource links that are here. Being able to connect live with Sage support, you can just click on a button from your home menu and go right to the support knowledge base, or actually open a support topic with a support representative. You can also put your own links here. So if you have, for instance, benefit provider websites or a location on your network at the office, you have all of your HR documents, your new hire paperwork, or orientation handbook, things like that. You can put those links right into your desktop so that you sort of have one-click access to everything that you need for human resources. And also, if you think bigger picture, the software is designed to do the same kinds of things for employees. So our core HR can also be connected to an employee self-service tool where employees would have the same kind of one-click access. So it's really good to think about the Sage HRMS HR module as your point of truth. So this is where all the employee information resides. You can pull things off of spreadsheets now and get them into the screens in the software. So reporting is much easier. And of course, we can do real-time alerts when we have all of the employee information in a database. So things like certifications that are going to expire, or we want to send out email notifications for service anniversaries or birthday announcements. Now it's really easy to do that right from the HRMS panel. I'm going to go in now and look for an employee. So the list that pops up is really just my own default settings. I want the software to show me active employees so that I'm working with just my current list of staff at the moment. But if I need to quickly go into terminated employees or employees that are out on leave, I can easily select those options. I can also filter by any one of my fields. So if I'm looking at everyone who reports to a specific supervisor, I can just click the supervisor panel and refresh for me in alphabetical order. Or I'm looking for only people who are in a specific department. It's really easy to search through your list of employees now without having to remember names or ID numbers or any of those pieces that are sometimes a little harder to sort by than just, a department code, a supervisor code, or an employee's name. I'm going to pick on Marilyn here in sample data because she has good examples of a lot of the things I want to highlight as we go through the HR module. So now we're actually in Marilyn's record. We're seeing her specific information. I can always click the little arrow to go alphabetically to the next person in my list, or if I have some filters set, for instance, I was searching by department, it'll go in that order that I had in my viewfinder. And you'll also note that there are some tabs across the top of this panel: demographics, HR status, termination. I'm still within Marilyn's personal information. I can go into her job and pay, her benefits, really easily just by clicking my tabbed format, or right back into her personal information. I can also do that from the menu here on the left. So if you like that Outlook navigation look and feel, you can navigate this way, or if you like the tabs at the top, you can get to the screens that way. Usually 3 or 4 ways to do everything in the HR system. It's just what makes the most sense for your business. So we're looking at Marilyn's demographic information now: her home address, her province, her telephone number, a work email address, or possibly even a personal one, depending on the types of alerts we want to send out to staff. If we want to have, weather closure alerts or something, maybe going to a personal email account, you can have 2 of those here. On the personal tab, we're seeing more of her confidential information, her SIN number, information about her birth date and age. And you'll see one of the first examples of a field that's slightly grayed out in the software. There are a number of things it just calculates for you behind the scenes. Age is a great example. When we get into job history or length of service, the software is just going to keep that current for you every day, so that if you need the information quickly or you want to pull a report or send out an email, it's always current, and there's nothing you have to do to have the software keep that information up to date for you. The third tab here is Marilyn's smiling face. And I wanted to highlight this one because there are several places in the software where you can link documents or images or actually attach files to an employee record. So we really are beginning to replace that paper personnel folder in the file cabinet with this electronic record. Now people can have access to data really quickly, including attachment images. And it's just as simple as having maybe a folder on your network where you're putting your HR documents. This one just happens to be called Photos. So if you do use badges or security fobs and we're taking images of employees, you can attach that to the employee record. And now if you print an chart or a report, you could even add photos to those reports because they're just stored right here with the employee's data. Moving now into our status for Marilyn. So we're looking at the picture of her either hire and service information or possibly her leave accrual service information. You'll see there are 4 different dates that we can capture. Marilyn was originally hired in 2008, and it doesn't look like she's ever left and come back, so she's just been hired, and that's her service dates. The software is calculating her seniority. And in her example, her time off seniority matches her actual employment seniority. You may have employees that's not true. Someone leaves and comes back. Maybe we grandfather in their previous service, but we're keeping an adjusted seniority date for employment service because they were gone for 16 months. So the software will easily let you see employees that have had life changes or employment status changes, and we can still keep a track of when they were first hired with us way back when, but then maybe a rehire date is their last hire date, and their service may be adjusted based on the time they were away. Employment eligibility, if we need to capture visa information and expiration date, then we could alert you to upcoming expirations, and you can think about those same types of alerts for any kind of anniversary date. So any seniority dates, like I said before, certifications and licenses that are about to expire, notifying an employee that something is missing from their employment record. Behind the scenes, the alerts can just watch for all of these things you want to eye out on. I usually ask if you think about the Post-it notes that are taped to your monitor. Those are usually the kinds of things that we could now automate for you instead of you having to have a hand reminder to go and look for that or run a report or check for an expired driver's license, that kind of thing. The Termination tab in the system, of course, is only populated if the employee has actually left, possibly come back if they were rehired. But it does have that all-important rehire yes/no button, so that helps down the road. If someone is applying for your company again and they were previously employed, you'll have that history. The software does not require you to delete or archive any employees, and the license is just for your active staff. So as people go on leave and are terminated, you get to keep all of their history, but they don't count towards your license anymore. The great thing about that is if they leave, they're gone 4 years, and then you hire them back, all of their historical information is still there. You just literally rehire them in the system, and then of course do the updates to their job and pay and the new things that they would have, but you still have all of their historical information in the system. Leave of absence is just what it says. Again, we'd only see this populated if an employee is actually gone on a medical leave or an unpaid leave. And this is an area where human resources can keep track of things that may or may not be associated with payroll. If this is an unpaid leave, we may not see a timesheet for that employee during that period, but for HR's purposes, we want a historical record that they were still with us, but they took a paid leave or they were gone for a month sabbatical. So this would be an area where you can keep track of kind of information from an HR perspective, whether or not it's actually tied to some sort of payout that we're doing through payroll, whether it's vacation pay or an unpaid leave. We may see that side of the employee in the payroll history. We'd always have that here in human resources. The next panel is one of my favorites, the events area. And kind of, it seems like it might be something simple, and maybe in your business it could be, but the best part about this area is that it has two sets of dates. It has an effective date and a next due date, which means we can use it for lots of different types of tracking. So everything from an annual bonus to an actual certification or license. So you'll notice this is a drop-down list, and all drop-down lists that we're seeing in the software allow you to add your own code to the system. So it could be training we're tracking, it could be a copy of a form, could be a transcript, could be something like a verbal warning or a disciplinary action. We can add all of those codes into the software, and now they become your setup. And when you want to pick a certification from the list, you can enter an effective date and a next due date, and even some comments, a little bit of free-form text here at the end. So now we have all of that automated. We can easily pull reports. There are some templates already built looking for a certain event code and a due date prompt. So show me anyone who has a driver's license expiring in June. Show me anyone who has a CPR certification that expires in September, so I can plan to get these trainings completed and make sure that I'm not out of compliance. By the same token, you can use the same area to track something like a disciplinary action. Show me all of the employees who've had tardies in January, and we're now coaching them to make sure they get their attendance updated on time. There's a lot of different ways you can use that events panel. The next panel, the notes area, is along the same line, but it's all about just free text. So this is more of an area where human resources might keep a long notation about a disciplinary action, or maybe some unusual notes about a benefit claim, or some sort of conversation that a manager is having with the employee. But here you can still add your own note types to the system, but you can see it's a much larger panel for text. So no limits here on the data entry, and this one is designed to flow up to self-service as well. So if you wanted supervisors to begin automating performance notes throughout the year, Portal would allow them to enter notes and send it back to human resources for approval. So again, just thinking about the types of paperwork that you touch, or post-it notes, or at performance review time, how do you communicate with managers? Hopefully the HR system is starting to give you that core point of truth where you can track all of the employee information electronically, and now you won't have to do so much manual reporting or keying into a spreadsheet and then having to print it, take it to a meeting, because all of that data would be right here at your fingertips. I mentioned the image for Marilyn. So that was an area where we attached a photograph to her record. In the attachments panel, we can actually attach a list of documents. So again, codes that are unique to you. So you'll be adding your own types of codes to the system. And I'm certainly not suggesting that you go to your file cabinet, pull out the personnel file, and start scanning all the paperwork. But what this panel could really help with is things that you have to touch frequently. If you recruit from within, for instance, it might be worthwhile to either scan in resumes and applications, or if they're coming in electronically anyway, just go ahead and attach it to the employee's record when the applicant is hired as an employee. Copies of driver's license, copies of certifications or licenses, things that maybe you have locations who need to have access to that, and right now you either have to make a copy and send it to them, or they have to call HR and HR has to go to the file. So things that you're touching frequently can just be linked right here, and then you have access to them electronically. And then our last panel, under the personal area, is contact information for Marilyn. So primary contacts, emergency contacts, even if you have an employee that's having a health and safety issue, one of the contacts, because there are two tabs here, could be a physician, name and notes, or phone number in case there's something we need to monitor. And again, this is an area where it is designed to let it go to self-service and let the employee current for us. But certainly at new hire, we would have captured that information for emergency contact, and now we can keep it close right here. Okay, we're going to transition from Marilyn's personal view. We're going to start to look at her now from her role within the company, what her employment looks like. So in her current pay tab, now we're starting to see pay rate information, pay effective dates. This could be the day she began her position, because you'll notice she was hired in 2008, but she has a pay effective date of 1/1/2010. That could have just been an annual pay increase, could have been a new job. We'll see in just a minute in her job history where that pay effective date came from. But you'll note that's a date that's completely separate from those service dates that we saw in her personal record. So we always have a view of the employee as the company, and then all the individual transactions that happen once they're employed. Their actual pay and performance, maybe leave of absence, terminations and rehires, and job data. So when they're in their position, we have length of service and pay rates that are tied specifically to those dates as well. On her Pay and Performance tab, we can see when she had a previous pay change, July of 2009, the percentage increase when her performance or pay review was due at that time. You'll notice there are 2 dates here. So for instance, when we have a new hire, they may have a probationary review, but they don't necessarily get a pay increase at that point. Maybe they have an annual eligibility for a pay review, but the performance is related to either seniority or maybe if we have a disciplinary action. So it's easy for the software to capture the history on both of those types of events. And you get to associate that with reason codes. And here's one of the drop-down lists that are basically empty when we first install the software. And you can go through and add your own codes that match your policies and procedures. Following along with your current procedures or maybe making some changes and adding some new codes, since now that it'll be much easier to track it in the software versus maybe the spreadsheets or handwritten reports you were having to maintain before. There is a user-defined panel in this area as well. When the software is installed, the fields are just labeled miscellaneous, but you can change those and actually capture information that's unique to your business. A badge number, a locker number, maybe number of hours of service if we have something like leave that's calculated specifically on some special formula. It's really easy to capture that data in the panel and then have your reports automated or have your alerts automated. One of the best examples I can offer is the step rate, the very next panel. We do have salary grades and steps that are available to use in the core HR module. So what some customers have is a user-defined field for hours of service, and as that accumulates, and we're just sending that from payroll, it might affect a step rate change or moving the employee into a new salary grade. So the software can automatically email a supervisor and human resources and payroll and let them know that the employee satisfied that requirement. They have enough work hours, now they might need to move to a different step rate. So you can see how HR is really tied to your payroll data. Doesn't mean you have to change anything about how you're running payroll today, but we can start to automate some of those things you may be doing manually, and of course send the information back and forth. So we don't have any duplicate data entry now between HR and payroll. So looking at Marilyn's current job information, moving away from just pay side and looking at her position with the company, she is currently an assembler. That's her position. She's a direct for maybe cost allocation purposes. She's a non-exempt hourly salary grade. That's just the range of pay for her position. Regular, full-time, active. All of these drop-down lists are going to look like your current organizational structure and the way that you refer to your employees. So if you have seasonal staff or part-time staff, you'll be able to pull all of that now on very easily. You can see her job start date was different than her original hire date. Of course, as an employee in a specific position, she might have a department code assigned to her or division. These codes, when the software is first installed, these levels are unique to you. So you'll just see in sample data, I have a department location. In your business, it might just say department or facility or project code. So it usually looks a little bit like what your chart of accounts looks like, or maybe what your organizational chart looks like. So it's just another way that we can classify employees, pull reports, get alerts, and have all that information flowing. We also have supervisor assignments here, so we can see her primary and her secondary supervisor. Again, get organizational reports, or we know who to alert if we have something like a day reminder or service or something like that we want to send out to a manager. And the third tab here is for employees who wear multiple hats in your business. So if we have people who have multiple pay rates because they do more than one job, or if we have shift differentials, we can handle that through here too. But it's really designed to help HR approve an employee who has multiple positions. And that way it makes it easy for payroll. We know of effective dates for a different pay rate for a job. Maybe we have someone on leave and the receptionist is filling in accounting temporarily. We can put that into the software. Now we have the history record, but we also know for payroll purposes that that employee is approved to have 2 different pay rates for a specific period of time. And all of the fields that we've looked at so far, so the personal information, the current pay, and the current job, they are all automatically being transformed into a history record for Marilyn every time there's something that happens to her within our business. So we can see here a new hire record when she first came on board in 2008. She was an AP Clerk 1. We can see what her pay information was. Then she had a cost of living adjustment in 2010. So as happened with our employees, the software just automatically creates a history record that combines those personal tabs and the pay and job tab and creates a history record. So we can see what her position was back in 2008, what her status was, where she was reporting, what department she worked in, who her supervisor was, even on down to any pay and performance information. If she ever got a raise in that position, how her manager rated her when she was working in that position. And those 4 user-defined fields will move into history along with the employee. So now, when performance review time rolls around each year, you have all of your data at your fingertips to run a report or just to have a supervisor have access to it so that they can quickly go back and look at the employee's history and make their decisions for pay increases or promotions for next year. The last tab here is designed for payroll. Most of you are probably Sage 300, not Sage 100, just demo data. 100 is what I have there. But that's just how we're sending any kind of HR information right into the payroll system. So new hires, pay changes, promotions, all of that will flow electronically to payroll now, and we won't have to key it in both HR and payroll. It just happens once and no more duplicate data entry. Okay, we're transitioning now into some of the additional things that HR needs to keep track of for an employee. Insurance benefit enrollment, and some of these are optional. You may be managing all of this now in payroll, and that's fine. If we wanted to see a more detailed picture of the employee, on the HR side, we can see all of the benefit enrollment, including coverage amounts, and the company side of benefits is just the employee's payroll contribution. So you'll see here we have an employee premium column, a dependent premium column, and then a contribution column. The contribution is what's being sent to payroll. So we always have the view on the HR side in a monthly view that matches the bills that come from your benefit providers. When that gets mapped over to payroll, it's going to be the per pay period deduction. Same thing with the employee and dependent premium. It may give you better reporting to match and calculate and correct your bills from your providers while still giving payroll the information that they need to make sure paychecks are, payroll deductions are correct for each paycheck. The other great thing about managing benefits here in the HR side is we'll be building in your benefit plans and the rate tables. So if you have a retirement or a savings plan or even an AD&D plan that calculates on salary or age, it will automatically happen on the HR side. No one will have to calculate that for payroll or key it in payroll when the employee's age rolls over. And if the benefit changes based on salary, that will happen automatically. We can track savings benefits as well, retirement, and kind of savings that we offer for the employee. And again, that will just match the popular employee payroll deduction. And then dependent beneficiaries, if you want to track this kind of detail for the employee, this is the panel where you can have this information. These types of things really are designed for employees to have self-service access, so they're doing the data entry for you. If you did want to maintain these in human resources, you certainly can. Same thing on the wellness panel. We see the wellness panel used a bit more in the United States, where we do have a lot of wellness programs to try to keep healthcare costs at a minimum. But there are some fields here specifically for test information or physical exams that you can definitely track that information for the employees. All right, our next panel is the time off area. I'm going to look at the summary first. So in my sample data, I have the software calculating days of leave, but you can certainly calculate hours of leave as well. I just wanted to show the flexibility here. So Marilyn is enrolled in a sick plan and a vacation hourly plan, where she's accumulating leave either based on hours worked or maybe a lump sum accrual based on her hire date or maybe a fiscal year date. And the software will over balances, show us what the accrual is, and then show what time has been taken. This is a summary view. There is also a transactional view that's designed to see the detail. So coming either from the payroll timesheets, or this could be something that Human Resources wants to maintain. I mentioned the example earlier of the leave without pay. There's probably no timesheet entry for that. But HR might want to have a historical record. It was an extended sick leave, or it was the birth of a child and they wanted more time than what our policy allows. HR can easily enter a time off transaction here with as much detail as they'd like, even a partial day if you want to do start times and end times. And this function does flow up to our self-service module. So if we wanted employees to request time off, or at least enter it after they come back from a sick day, enter it through the self-service portal, it would refresh here for HR and payroll behind the scenes. But it's kind of how you want the employee to do the entry, whether it's an after-the-fact record and we're just keeping track, or if it's more time employee-facing, and then we might want them doing that through the service portal. And there are lots of reports that are built in. That's the last place I'll hop in just a second to show you some of the built-in things that can either generate the reports with all the leave history or even send email alerts out if we're watching an employee and they're getting close to their balance of time. Maybe they're having a sick issue and we want to alert the manager that they're getting close to running out of time. All right, so payroll would be done through your payroll system, but if for some reason you were looking to bring in-house, there is an HRMS payroll module as well. But for today's purposes, I'm going to just skip over that and go to our safety information. So our health and safety panel does capture all of the information that you need about a specific injury, work location, what exactly happened to the employee, even the number of minutes or hours away from work. If you want to track that level of detail, you can certainly enter it here. Location information, incident detail, what happened, did they injure, a specific body part, did we send them for treatment, and if so, they go, who was the physician that treated them, and then even to your workers' compensation claim, you could track the lost time, using that leave of absence panel or your attendance panel. You could enter the days away and then have the system calculate maybe lost time costs or medical costs. You have that information available. And again, this is all just in functionality in the HR module. So everything we're seeing is in the core HR system itself. The career tab we see used most often just to track skills information. This is definitely a panel that is probably better utilized with the self-service portal. Employees can do this data entry for you, and then HR can just approve it before it becomes a permanent part of the record. It's a lot of data entry. It's designed really to be coming from your recruiting system. so that when an applicant applies and they become a new hire, all of this gets populated for you. So skills that the employee has, years of experience, their education information, where they went to school, previous employer. So these panels, as they're connected to self-service or recruiting, we don't see them populated that often, except maybe for the skills area, because you could certainly hire from within based on looking for a specific employee with certain skills. And then our last panel, the custom detail area, is probably my second favorite area in the software after events. And what this allows us to do is to create entire screens that are unique to your business. So the best example I can give is company property. So maybe you're issuing keys to a building, to an office, or you're issuing a laptop or a mobile phone. The things that, during the employment we never think about again, but when the employee is terminated, we can't recall what keys did they have or what property do we need to get back at the end of their employment. It creates a screen that's captured that information that's unique to that particular employee. We've also seen customers who didn't like the skills panel or didn't like the training panel, and they created their own. So then you can have your own panel for company property or skills and licenses or wellness information that's unique to your business. And then, of course, all of these panels have the right security based on who you are in the company, and all be on reports and alerts. So reports is where I'm going as a final look. There aren't just built-in reports in the software. And I'm going to look at the employee and organization reports. But each of these headings has additional reports underneath it. So there are about 160 canned reports that come with the software. But when I say canned, they aren't really. So if I click on that event report, each of the reports has what we call a standard criteria tab, where you can filter specific department codes or specific employees. I only want to see active staff on this report, for instance. And there's always a third tab where you can filter on something else. So here I'm looking for a specific event code, a certification. I'm looking for certifications that were renewed this year. And I'm looking at sample data, so I'm going to go back in time just a little bit so that we'll actually get one. And have the software show me all of the certifications that are about to expire this year. I didn't quite go back far enough in sample data. But all the reports can be generated to the screen. They can be printed to a printer. They can also be exported right out to a spreadsheet or to a PDF if you want to save them. And there are several hundred of those. Especially using the criteria, you can easily filter into them. The other reporting option that you have is typically the favorite of human resources, and this one is actually very user-friendly. So it's not predefined. I'm going to call this one new employee report. I can make it public or private. This means with user security, other people can see and run my report or not. And for this particular report, I want all the HR information available, and I also want attendance. So depending on what I'm going to include in the report, that's what I'll have access to. Now I'm just grabbing information in very user-friendly formats. So I'm going to scroll down to name and have the software go ahead and do last, first, middle name. And maybe I want job title. Maybe I want job start date. I want to know who they report to, so show me supervisor name. Maybe for now that's it. I'm about to run into a management meeting. Somebody's asked me for a quick report. I say OK. And then I can just either view the data to the screen. Here's my quick report. OK, that looks good. Or I can actually run it. And now when I run the query, I decide what my output looks like. So I want to print the report. I want to send it out to a spreadsheet with my output results. I okay, go ahead and just create this as a spreadsheet. I'm running into the office meeting, and people might ask me to filter it, so I just want all my data out really quickly. Or I'm going into a management team meeting, and I want it to be a report with a header and really look nice, make me look good when I go into my meeting. So the query tool is a really fast report tool for you. And then the last option that you have for reporting, kind of that highest tier report, the software does come with Crystal reports. So for those of you who've ever used that before, that's just a generic report writing tool, very powerful, but not necessarily that user-friendly list of field names. It is more, a little more technical, but there really is no limit to the reports that you can run with Crystal. And all of the canned reports that we looked at, that quick list, most of these are all written for you as a template in Crystal, so you don't have to start from scratch. You can use some of the reports that are there and modify them and add the fields that you're looking for. Okay, I think, Joan, now would be a good time to open the phone lines back up. I did see some questions coming in through chat. Thank you. It is a bit hard to read and talk at the same time. So, Joan, if I didn't answer the question, I'll ask you to read them back to us so that I can refocus on them.
Okay, I have a couple questions. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. So regarding absenteeism, is the info there now to run a report for an employee that has taken a number of days off for a specific reason, i.e. sick, or injuries for a report of WorkSafe BC going back a number of years?
Absolutely, yes. So employees, if they're currently out on some kind of leave or just we want to see their history, these reports are already built into the system, and you'd be looking, just your example, for specific codes that we've already qualified are part of that leave of absence transaction. So as we create our own codes in the system, you'll know what codes you want to use, and yes, the reports are already built to look at employment time away. Yes.
On top of that, we're wondering also if it would be a manual entry or would it be captured through Sage?
If you have Stage 300 payroll and we're entering that on the 300 payroll timesheet or 100, yes, and that could come and flow right into the human resource side. We probably just want to talk a little bit more about what a time and attendance system you're using and what data is coming from, because I do see sometimes that transaction isn't necessarily on a timesheet. We don't always see time off on a timesheet unless it's paid time off. So in that case, then HR would want to manually enter those transactions because they don't exist in payroll. We're just tracking them from an HR perspective.
Another question, would all the certification dates have to be manually entered first?
Not necessarily. If you have that information in a spreadsheet, that can be something we can import when we're first setting up the system. Obviously, we're going to be importing all of your employment information, your name, address, pay rate, everything we can get in an electronic format. We can import that in to start the system. So if you have a spreadsheet in Human Resources or maybe supervisors are tracking those, we can import those to start so you don't have to key them all in.
I have another question. Are you able to limit profiles so that a certain user could only access a particular screen? For instance, could you have someone in facilities only be able to access the employee property screen so they could enter the keys they have issued?
Absolutely, yes. Everything has security built to it. There is both group security, so if we have, for instance, 3 people who have basically the same rights, we don't have to set them up 3 times. We'll just set up one group and put the employee in the group. If we need individual field level security, for instance, we have a receptionist who can see the personal information tab, so she could get a home phone number if she needed it, but she couldn't see pay rate information, for instance. She would have her own unique user security where we're restricting individual fields. So she could still see some pages, but even on that page, she couldn't see other information.
So far, that's all the questions I received through chat. I don't know if anyone has messaged you directly, Dina.
Not that I see, but we could open the phone lines up in case anyone has any other questions.
Dina, can you hear me?
Sure, yes.
Hi, it's Chrissy here. Just to clarify on that last question, could you maybe expand a little bit on like what the core purpose of what you've shown us today for HRMS? Like, just that question kind of sparked the idea of maybe, you know, we don't want all of your employees to have access to this, right? Like it would just be your HR department and maybe some key people, and then maybe implementing employee self-serve if you did want people to maintain certain areas, employees or supervisors.
That's a good, thanks, Chrissy. That is important. So I'm looking at the setup now for the HRMS. So this, what we're looking at today, really is designed to be our back office master point of record. So it's really just intended for human resources, payroll, finance director. Really, those staff are the types of people that would interact with this every day. You certainly could have custom panels. The custom detail panel that I showed where the company was. We do have customers who have two supervisors who just really want to have, you know, view access to the employees, but you're not quite ready for self-service. You could use the security and have some panels that they can access for information, and they would log in here. But generally, this is the tool that just our HR payroll staff have access to. All of the employees would not have access to HRMS like this. If we want employees, or want to think about, you know, next step, if we want employees to have access to the same data, that would just be our employee self-service system. So you'll notice my screen just refreshed and flashed. That's because I hopped into a web browser and I'm launching our web version of HR. And this is the design for all of the employees to have access to it. So same field names, you know, personal profile, address, telephone number, but this would be the application where all of your staff, whether they're an employee, whether they're a manager, you'll see there are two different menus up here at the top. So this tool just, to me, it acts like a mirror. It just reflects all of the data that we're maintaining in our HRMS system, and it's pushing it to a web portal where all the employees can now have access to it. And what that means is they can see their own information. So for instance, they could add their skills for you. You review them, approve them, but you're not having to do that data entry. They're the ones, self-service portal employees would send their own time off requests to their manager. They could see their own time off balances, either, and that means your options are just at the office, so they only have access to the system when they're at work. They could have access to it away from the office if you wanted to open it up to the web. A mobile device, or even at home from their home computer, they could see this. And this you can turn on whenever you're ready, but it's really all being delivered from that core functionality that we've looked at. So information that human resources maintain, what the self-service portal allows us to do is hopefully take the entry off of you in HR and payroll, and empower the employees and managers with more real-time access. Hopefully that helps clarify a little bit too, the security. If the security is coming right from what we have in human resources, where the employee reports for their job and pay, that's how the system knows where to show the employee. So Marilyn, when we logged into self-service, Theodore would be able to see Marilyn because in HR, we've said that's her manager. So Theodore would only be able to see the staff he manages, and then there's a setting for indirect reports as well. That's your choice. He wouldn't, for instance, be able to see an employee that he doesn't manage. He doesn't have that security.
Dina, I have a question.
Okay.
how is the cost of the program determined? Is it by the number of employees, number of licenses?
It's by the active number of employees, the number of people you're processing through payroll at one payroll period, and also by the number of net seats. And what that means is the number of concurrent users who would need access to HR at the same time. So if there are 4 of you who need HR data and 2 of you just occasionally, we would suggest trying 2 or maybe 3 licenses because you can install it on all 4 workstations. It's just the number of people that would need to be in at the same time.
Any other questions from anyone else?
It's Christy again here. Just one last thing, and I know you mentioned it, Dina, but just to kind of clarify, maybe you can expand a little bit on it too. Obviously, this isn't. It can be integrated with Sage 300, but Sage 300 Payroll. But you also don't have to have Sage 300 Payroll to have the program. It is standalone, correct, Dina?
Correct. Yes, absolutely. So HR could just be standalone. You could be coming from spreadsheets and payroll. You don't have to have, or even outsourcing payroll. It doesn't have to have the 300 payroll to work. It can be standalone.
And also, just to let you know, for the ones that do have Sage 300 Payroll, when you're maintaining both areas, can you kind of just maybe expand a little bit on where do you maintain that? Do you maintain it in both places, or one place is master?
Typically, the HR side becomes your one point of truth now, your master record for the employee, because we don't want you to have the duplicate data entry challenge anymore. So you'll notice there are some tasks here in the employee menu. So adding a new hire, changing a job, or giving a pay increase, terminating an employee. Now that would all happen here on the HR side, and then we'll electronically send all of that information into payroll. Won't have to key it in payroll. And payroll has the button. No, that doesn't go real time unless you tell us you want it to. Most of our customers, we know things happen, people get interrupted, employees ask questions. So it's an interface that typically payroll chooses when to run. And they'll run it and look at the audit report, make sure, for instance, that those pay changes, they knew about them and that they're in the right effective pay period. Make sure that we really want to terminate this employee. Maybe we have to off a pay period because we've got to pay out leave on a separate paycheck. So payroll will have the rights to actually bring in that HR data, and they'll be able to review it first. But hopefully now that the data entry is being done here in HR, and then that's just electronically updating the payroll record.
Any other questions?
That's it for me.
Chrissy?
No, that's great. Thanks so much, Dina.
Oh, my
Anyone
pleasure.
else?
And thanks everyone for your patience and understanding the last time we tried to do this. Hopefully today made up for that. And if you have any questions, or like I said, if you want to follow up and take a deeper look just one-on-one with us, you can let Chrissy and Joe know. We'll be happy to do that.